15 poorest African countries. Africa is without a doubt the poorest continent on the planet, but the competition is not very close. Economic insecurity, political insecurity and corruption, civil wars and terrorist groups have rendered millions of Africans impoverished. The World Bank now ranks 27 countries globally as low-income economies, meaning that they are among the world's poorest, and 23 of these countries are in Africa. Gross domestic product per capita and gross national income per capita are two often used metrics to determine a country's wealth. Gross domestic product (GDP) per capita is calculated by taking the total value of all products and services generated by a country and dividing it by the number of people living in that country. Before we get into the top 15 poorest countries in Africa, it's important to know that the criteria used to select them were the gross domestic product per capita and the gross national income per capita, GDP and GNI per capita. Hello viewers, welcome to another informative video on the channel. If you're new here, ensure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so as to be notified on our future uploads. Without further delay, let's start our countdown. Number 15, Chad. GDP $2,428, GNI $680. Hissène Habré, Chad's former dictator and strongman who had ordered the killings of up to 10,000 of his countrymen by strange and brutal methods in his mansion, swimming pool and garage, died of the pandemic in August 2021. Even though he was deposed in 2015, he left his mark on Chad's people and its economy. Local businesses suffered for several years as a result of the civil war, and foreign businesses did not invest. Only in the last 2 or 3 years has Chad's cotton industry and mining for natron, which is used to produce laundry detergents, seen a recovery. Even the limited wealth generated by those businesses appear to benefit those living outside of Chad. As indicated by Chad's per capita GDP of $2,428 and per capita GNI of $680. Number 14, Mali. GDP $2,271, GNI $830. Mali is one of the poorest countries in Africa. Mali's average daily wage is $1.25, and more than half of the population is currently below the international poverty line. Mali is largely self-sufficient in terms of food. Many individuals work on farms to grow crops that will feed their families and communities. Mali is dealing with a number of difficulties related to its climate and landscape, and as a result, droughts are an immediate concern in Mali because 2/3 of the country is a desert. Millions of people struggle to grow crops they require due to poor soils, and they are unable to buy what their families require due to low salaries. As a result, malnutrition becomes a prominent issue and is the main source of poverty in Mali. Number 13, Guinea-Bissau. GDP $1,951, GNI $1,020. Guinea-Bissau, located on West Africa's Atlantic coast, is one of the world's poorest and most unstable countries. Nationally, about 11% of Guinea-Bissau households are food insecure. Unfortunately, in some areas, the percentage of food insecure households might reach up to 51%, and political unrest has hindered efforts to reduce rural poverty in particular. During the civil war that lasted from 1998 to 1999, 300,000 urban residents migrated to rural areas to escape the violence. Increased land competition and accompanying bad harvest have reduced food supplies as well as rural livelihoods. Agriculture accounts for 90% of all exports, which is why the economy has suffered as well. Number 12, Eritrea. GDP $1,820, GNI $699. Eritrea is commonly referred to as Africa's North Korea. Fighting for independence from Ethiopia from the 1960s until 1990, it gained freedom for barely 8 years before launching a brutal war with Ethiopia in 1998, which ended only in 2018. For numerous years, Eritrea was the country with the highest number of African refugees attempting to enter Europe. Eritrea's sustained reliance on agriculture for economic success faces obvious challenges. Aside from the loss of underused agricultural land along the Eritrea-Ethiopia border, the Eritrean economy is frequently hit by climatic shocks. Farmers who rely on agriculture for a living are subject to the negative consequences of droughts and environmental deterioration. The Horn of Africa is frequently subjected to harsh weather conditions, which is unfavorable for farmers, who along with single parents and female-headed households are the most vulnerable sections of Eritrean society. Number 11. Madagascar. GDP $1,697. GNI $1,540. According to the World Bank, 75% of Madagascar's population is estimated to be living on less than $1.90 a day since 2019. Furthermore, approximately 85% of homes in Madagascar lack access to electricity, and nearly half of the children in Madagascar are expected to suffer from stunting as a result of malnutrition, causing 1 in every 16 children to die before the age of 5. Madagascar as an island is vulnerable to natural disasters and the consequences of climate change, with an average of 3 natural catastrophes each year. These are accountable for around $400 million in damages. Madagascar, formerly one of the most spectacular concentrations of biodiversity on the planet, with 90% of its animals found nowhere else on Earth, today has enormous areas of complete landscape ruin due to drought and fires. Number 10. Sierra Leone. GDP $1,608. GNI $1,670. Sierra Leone has been afflicted by civil wars and poverty since its independence in 1961. Despite being one of the few countries in the world with valuable natural resources, such as diamonds and rare minerals, this country remains impoverished. One of the most fundamental causes of poverty in Sierra Leone is the government. Since the end of colonial rule, the government has been characterized mostly by one-party rule or military dictatorship, a one-dimensional system that does not allow for opposition and encourages corruption. Natural disasters, particularly mudslides, have also afflicted Sierra Leone, and about 2/3 of its population is engaged in subsistence farming, primarily rice cultivation. Sierra Leone is rather one of the few African countries with a higher GNI than GDP. Number 9. South Sudan. GDP $1,420. GNI $1,090. The Republic of South Sudan's economy is one of the world's least developed. It has one of the greatest infant mortality rates in the world, as well as one of the highest rates of female illiteracy. It boasts one of the world's youngest populations, with more than 40% of the population under the age of 14. South Sudan is still in a significant humanitarian crisis as a result of the cumulative consequences of years of conflict that have destroyed the people's livelihoods. Extreme levels of acute food insecurity prevail across the country, with approximately 7.2 million people facing crisis-level food insecurity and 1.4 million children under the age of 5 predicted to be acutely malnourished in 2021. The humanitarian crisis has displaced approximately 4 million people, with nearly 1.6 million internally displaced and 2.2 million refugees in 6 bordering countries. Number 8. Liberia. GDP $1,413. GNI $530. Liberia has been recovering from a 14-year civil conflict that destroyed national infrastructure and essential social services since the 2003 Comprehensive Peace Agreement. An estimated 64% of Liberians live in poverty, with 1.3 million living in extreme poverty. Although agricultural production has increased since the war's end, the country still relies on food imports and is vulnerable to economic shocks. Liberia is one of the 21 countries in the world with the highest rates of stunting. Because of a lack of sufficient nutrition, 1 out of every 3 children under the age of 5 is stunted or too short for their age. Additionally, malnourished children are more likely to die from diarrhea, pneumonia, or malaria. According to the UN, 85% of the youth population is unemployed, with approximately 35% of males and 42% of females unable to find work due to a lack of skills and training. Number 7. Mozambique, GDP $1,331, GNI $460. Following independence in 1975, Mozambique disintegrated during the Mozambican Civil War, displacing almost 5 million people and increasing poverty in the country. Although the war ended in 1992, the country's economic development was hampered by violence and insecurity. Improving disaster preparedness is critical to Mozambique's poverty-fighting efforts. The country is extremely vulnerable to natural disasters, with an average of 1 large-scale disaster occurring each year. Poverty rates have risen in the previous 5 years, particularly in rural areas, as a result of a crisis caused by decreased foreign direct investments, natural disasters, and military attacks in Mozambique's north and center. There was also the uncovering of hidden debts incurred by the government between 2013 and 2014, which resulted in the withdrawal of foreign aid, currency depreciation, food price increases, and a decrease in household consumption. Number 6. Malawi, GDP $1,234, GNI $500. Malawi, a small country in southern Africa, has the world's 4th largest proportion of people living in extreme poverty. More than 2/3 of Malawi's population lives in extreme poverty, with practically all relying on small-scale farming for a living. Malawi's economy is heavily reliant on tobacco, which accounts for 69.5% of total exports, and a situation that is becoming increasingly troublesome for Malawian households as worldwide demand for tobacco products decline. Furthermore, Malawi has one of the world's youngest populations, with 43% of the population under the age of 15. Agriculture development and diversification are essential concerns for Malawians in order to protect and improve their livelihoods and also the futures of their children. Number 5. Niger, GDP $1,213, GNI $540. Poverty is widespread and persistent in Niger, one of the world's poorest countries. 2 out of every 3 residents are poor, and more than 40% of the population earns less than $1 per day. Niger is afflicted by civil war, terror, illness, disease, poverty, and famine. Hunger is one of the most serious issues that people suffer on a daily basis. An estimated 5.4 million residents are food insecure, accounting for roughly 35% of the population, and approximately 40% of children are underweight. Hunger affects 2.5 million people, and 800,000 children are malnourished. The inauguration of Niger's president, Mohamed Bazoum, in 2021 marked the country's first peaceful transition of power. Unfortunately, the newly peaceful country is trapped between the Islamic State and Boko Haram fighters. Number 4. Somalia, GDP $888, GNI $310. Somalia has come to be associated with bloodshed, lawlessness, and extreme poverty. The country's major sector is cattle rearing, and approximately 43% of its people live on less than $1 per day. However, in recent years, situations have stabilized to the point where foreign corporations are investing in Somalia as a producer of halal meat for consumption in neighboring countries, restoring living standards to where they were in the early 1990s. Much of the country relies on earnings sent back by Somali foreigners. Number 3. Democratic Republic of the Congo. GDP $843, GNI $550. The Democratic Republic of the Congo is one of Africa's most populous and poorest countries. Nearly 3 out of every 4 people live on less than $1.90 per day, making it one of the world's most impoverished populations. Mining for rare earths, which are needed to make electric automobiles and telephones, is both the DRC's greatest potential and its greatest concern. Since 1908, this vast equatorial rainforest has been the world's largest source of cobalt. It supplied the high-grade uranium ore used to create the United States atomic weapons during World War II. Ordinary Congolese have little civic rights, no employment rights, and little choice but to work in low-wage jobs. The mines control the majority of the country's economic production. Number 2. Central African Republic. GDP $823, GNI $510. The Central African Republic has been plagued by religious conflict and civil bloodshed for decades. For much of the last 2 decades, the central government has controlled only the capital, which was taken over by a rebel group in 2013. Central Africans have been driven from their homes into refugee camps and again from their refugee camps. UN peacekeeping troops have restored some stability to the country since 2016, and the World Bank has invested in small company growth, but lawlessness, sickness, and a lack of infrastructure continue to damage the economy. Number 1. Burundi. GDP $727, GNI $210. Unfortunately, Burundi is one of the world's most impoverished countries. Almost any list of the top 20 poorest countries in Africa from the last 50 years would include Burundi. Burundi, like its neighbor Rwanda, experienced unrest in the 1990s, including a genocide against its Tutsi minority by its Hutu majority. Burundi is small, landlocked, heavily populated, and resource-deficient. Burundi's economy, however, is a fraction of that of its neighbor, Rwanda. Additionally, the agricultural sector and the country's over-reliance on primary products create insufficient income to sustain the Burundian economy. The country's trading shortcomings can be linked to an uneducated population, low worker productivity, and limited infrastructure. Rural poverty in Burundi is also contributing to the escalation of poverty. In Burundi, 9 out of 10 people live in rural settlements, relying mostly on subsistence and livestock farming. There you have it, viewers. Hope you found this video informative enough. If you did, ensure to hit that subscribe button. Give us a like while turning on the notifications so as to be notified on our future uploads. Thanks for watching.